Lydia.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to part 2 of Queen Bee for the month of March. This month, last week, as a matter of fact, last Tuesday, we had the opportunity to introduce you to a wonderful group of women who are serving Montgomery County and across the Black Belt as doulas. That is DOULA. When it's more than one, okay? And we attended an event called Meet the Doulas, which was held at a library branch in Montgomery, at the Rufus branch of the Montgomery Public Library, and it was a wonderful opportunity. So if you missed part 1 of Queen Bee, loved on before, during, and after pregnancy, then you're going to have to check that out after you finish watching this part 2, right? And so we are here with you this evening to have a really wonderful conversation. We are following up on the conversations with doulas, but also introducing you to an author whose book will be published. You can pre-order on Amazon. And so I'm going to just stop talking now because I'm going to introduce myself and then let all the other ladies introduce themselves to you. I'm Lydia Chapman. I work at Selma Air, and it is a pleasure always to be a part of Queen Bee, which is part of She's Ready, our HIV prevention program specifically dedicated to the health and wellness of Black women, y'all. And it's a beautiful thing to see these faces on this screen. Tell a friend to tell a friend. This is one conversation you don't want to miss. So, Kim, thank you for pushing through, friend. Look, and being here.
So hello, everybody. Hello, ladies. It's so I'm glad for you to be here. I missed last week, but I am going to get educated because I am not ashamed to say I know nothing. I'm a lady with 3 kids and know nothing. But let me introduce myself. I am Kim Moon. I too, like Lydia, am a part of Queen Bee, and I am founder of Positively Beautiful, where we are not talking about being positive. We are not talking about being beautiful, but we are talking about being whole.
Yes. It's Smith.
It is I. Okay, look, she took me real deep for a second. I was like, I had to hold on to that one. Bless you for that. Good evening, everybody. My name is Adiliah Smith. I'm the owner of Village Maternal Services, founder of Mama's Village MGM. I'm a doula and lactation consultant. I'm just Black and happy.
Love it.
You better come on down.
Love it.
So my name is Kimberlin Hoskins, and I am in Kennesaw, Georgia, and I'm the author of This Is Too Much. I worked in social service for the past 5 years, and recently, after having my son last May, I decided to give it up and pour into individuals in a different way. So I'm excited to tell you guys about my journey and how I came up with This Is Too Much.
I love it.
Yes. This is really and a wonderful opportunity for us as 4 Black women to talk about our health. I know Monte is going to be logging on, but we're going to get as much of the conversation out of the way before he tunes in. Look.
We don't need him.
Listen. Monte Hammond, y'all, is the founder of Queen Bee, and he always says, hey, we had to dig it out of the closet. When you call Lydia, like, listen, I had to pull it out and let's do it live, right? Mm-hmm. Queen Bee started off as a conference. We will continue to make it a conference, but every single month we come to you live every 3rd Tuesday of the month for at least 1 hour to talk about topics related to Black women's health and empowerment. So this is a wonderful opportunity for the 4 of us to actually talk, because tonight we are diving into issues related to pregnancy. Fertility, y'all, pregnancy, childbirth can be some of the most stressful times in our lives, right? Regardless of our socioeconomic status, regardless of our education level, regardless of the connections we have, who we know, right? Whether we are the mother or the father, truth be told, because childbirth, pregnancy, fertility, those are things that men also, right, have to cope with. So what are some of the, or at least one, what's the greatest lesson or truths, if you will, that you have learned related to fertility, pregnancy, or childbirth? And I think all of us, just because we're ladies, we have a lesson learned. Any one of you all can start off.
Kim going first.
Okay.
Okay. So with me and my experience, I feel like the greatest lesson that I learned is that we don't know exactly what we don't know and what we're going to experience during that time. So with me, I think a lot of people have different experiences, but my experience was very challenging because I was a first time mom, but not only just a first time mom, but it was during COVID. So doing a lot of things during COVID, that really weren't talked about, not being able to have your husband at the doctor appointment visits, not having family to be able to be in with you. So I think that this is very important that you're talking about the doulas and their part. But a lot of people didn't get a chance to really educate themselves, even myself, on, what kind of experience it would be like with having a doula, especially during those times, especially like COVID, when you have your support taken away from you, your mom or the people that have had children, and you get into the hospital and things go wrong, or, you don't know what's going on and you really don't have a voice to speak up and ask those necessary questions. So there was something that my experience is just not really knowing and educating yourself before time and having somebody else to be that voice for you when you're voiceless that is educated.
Okay.
I love it.
I can say for me, what I didn't know probably hit me more so after having kids. I was just like, wait, what? Like, okay, I know I'm gonna be sleepless. I know I'm gonna be tired. Like, okay, I know this, but it's like, wait a minute. I study child development. It's too many developments going on here. And so having to kind of brace myself and raise myself as a mother while I'm raising a child at the same time, and having to go through and grow through that. It was something like, okay, I need some parenting education somewhere because something has to give. Because you get all the things for the baby shower. First baby, we got enough diapers to last us literally a year and a half.
Yeah.
But these developmental, these things developmentally are throwing me, because I'm like, ain't nobody told me about this. I done read a lot of stuff about a lot of things, and I'm like, okay, good healthy pregnancy, great labor, great delivery. What in the world is taking place now?
Yeah.
I need some help, Jesus. I was like a deer in headlights with a baby at the house. I really, really was. Beyond the basics, I really was like a deer in headlights. And so I had to do a lot of gleaning from others, who I kind of they did not just those who had children, but those who I looked up to who had already had children. And I had to kind of sit myself down somewhere and start to pull in and tap in on some community resources like, hey, this can't be life. This can't be life for me and my husband.
Imagine being 15 and pregnant and don't know what to expect, what's going to happen. Just know I'm 15 and pregnant. Then imagine getting pregnant again at 17 and don't know. I mean, even though I got this baby, I still don't know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And I had to grow up fast. I had to grow up quickly, but I never shunned my responsibility like a lot of people do. But I didn't have when you're young, I'm from Alabama too. And when you're young and pregnant, people don't look at you the same. You know what I'm saying? They ain't doing today. Maybe they do, because it's common now. But back then, it wasn't common to be 15 and pregnant. In fact, you were ostracized. So nobody was giving away Pampers and milk and nothing else, or the wipes or anything. So it was I was all alone with no education, no nothing.
So, I think the biggest lesson learned was kind of like what Kimberlin said. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But what I had to learn was to not listen to other people when it comes to what the birthing process should be like for me. Right. I literally, during one of my appointments, I told my doctor that I wanted to have my baby in the water. And so he was like, Miss Chapman, don't bring me a notebook. I said, huh? He said, don't bring me a notebook. Every mommy that comes to me and says that I want to do this, and y'all have all these pages and you categorize, you got stuff color coded. We never use that stuff. So I'm telling you now, don't bring the notebook, because it's going to end up, it literally, it veers off. So needless to say, I did not give birth in water, but my birth was very easy. I will say that. But you don't know what you don't know. I had people at work telling me, oh, I was in labor for 18 hours. Girl, I don't believe that I'm going to hold up for 18 hours. I think I may have a high threshold of pain, but not for that. Never been here before. 18 hours. I don't stay at work 18 hours. I'm not doing that. So I'm trying to see like what. But yeah, like you don't know what you don't know. But when other people give information, like kind of like my dad says, get the meat off the bones and throw the rest away. So everything won't apply to you, and your birth process is your birth process. Yeah. About as unique as a fingerprint.
For sure, because nobody's is the same. Some women, I had problems with this. Others, it was a breeze to me. Like my first one, I had the little shot in the back where you don't feel nothing.
Epidural.
Yeah, epidural. I had that first one, and then my other two, I didn't want that no more because I felt like that caused me more pain. Yeah. So then I had the other two natural. I'm like, I ain't doing this. No more of that. That caused me too much pain. I was old enough to make that decision.
So now I do want to kind of I do kind of want to dig a little bit deeper though, because when we talk about, epidural and no epidural, now that we're learning about doulas, doula, no doula, everybody's process is different. And so like when we think about fertility and pregnancy, especially among Black women, right? What are some of like the intersectional challenges that you all have noticed, not just in our own experiences as moms, but with other women, who may have children, may not have children. But like fertility and pregnancy seem to be hot topics. And there's a lot of intersectionality where things like poverty play a role in what you know and what you have access to, healthcare insurance. So what are some other things that you all have noticed that plays a role?
So before y'all answer that, keep remembering, I'm being honest, but can you I want you to tell the audience what a doula is, because I'm being honest, I looked it up, but it might be somebody like me who like, what the heck is that? I asked the girl, I said, Monte, I'm over here trying to find somebody to fill in for you while you ain't here, because I don't know. And he was like, you're gonna be fine. I didn't know either. Before they answer that question, can you just talk to us and tell us what that is, what you do, what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's further down, but yeah, go ahead.
I need to know that before they start talking about it, because I don't know what's happening.
I like to tell people in real straight terms, not going to say non-clinical, this, that, the third. I'm not about to do that. We Queen Bee, and this is that. So the role that a doula plays, and I'll speak to birth doula because that's my particular specialty.
Yes. Yes. I'm learning too. I promise. I learned so much last week. Oh my God.
So essentially, I am a coach. Pregnancy, labor, delivery, and the very, very early postpartum. I'm coaching families, so I put it together. I'm both a coach and a teacher. But I'm always right there, almost like I don't want to call it a luxury because it's not, but a concierge. Like if you ever go to a fancy hotel and you just kind of pick up the phone and they're right there, or whatever the case may be, is that kind of a deal when it comes to preparing yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, in some cases spiritually, for what you're experiencing in pregnancy. As well as, people think, okay, you just show up at the hospital, and that's not the case. Or people think, oh, y'all don't work in the hospitals, y'all just do home births, and that's not the case either.
So, so is that the same? What is it called? When I remember a long time ago, they called them something else.
Midwives.
Midwives.
Yeah, it's not,
No,
the same.
that's not the same. Midwives are clinical. They checking fetal heart tone. They assessing what's the word I'm looking for? Fundal height, how big your uterus, your baby's expanding, all of those things. They're doing really all the same thing a doctor is doing, except without surgery.
Okay. Wow.
We literally are there when somebody's in labor. We're generally there the whole time. Whereas, a doctor or a midwife, and that's not to knock them because they have a role that they have to show up in and function in a certain capacity. We're generally designed, our role is to be there throughout the pregnancy. With my clients, I check in on them weekly. I'm literally walking hand in hand with them, making sure they have childbirth education, making sure we go through comfort measures, which are physical activities and exercises to make sure we're alleviating any discomfort or pain during pregnancy, as well as during labor. Not just them, but with their partners as well, because there's a big piece. We don't replace partners. We don't replace dad. We don't replace auntie. We don't replace whoever has already been in your life. We don't replace them. We just add to it and pour them into them as well. And I love when people show up fully supported with at least one person in their corner. I know they're going to have good outcomes. So we're coaching moms, but we're coaching dads or whoever the partner is. We're coaching them all the way through. Somebody it's like, oh, hey, my next appointment, one of my clients, she said, well, my next appointment, I have the glucose test coming up. I said, okay, well, what are your position or what's your thought on what's going to be offered to you, which is the little glucola drink or whatever else? She said, well, I never really thought about it. I said, okay, well, let me send you some information and we can kind of talk through what you see. And know that you have options. She didn't know that she had options, and that's okay. That's what she hired me for. That's what they hired me for. Right. You have options when it comes to this thing. I'm not going to push you off one way or the other. I remove any personal preference out of the way. If it is not going to harm you or it's not going to harm the baby, this is your experience. I'm here to support it.
Right. Whatever your decision might be.
Right. So I'm a complete and total coach. I'm a complete and total educator. Somebody says that you're a master affirmer. I guess I'm that too. And once the baby is born, helping them with newborn care sometimes, and like different things around the house. I've been folding clothes, washing dishes, cooking food, and everything else. So
yes, I heard you, Kimberlin. Oh wow, I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now y'all can answer a question. I just needed to know what that was.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yes.
So, like, when it comes to doulas, right? Like, when we think about the intersectionality, access to healthcare insurance, or even poverty, and the reduction of stress that having somebody who's in your corner who can do those things like wash the dishes and go to appointments with you, talk to you about, and be seriously interested about planning out your birth process, right? Mm-hmm. How do these things matter? Like, how have you seen that make a difference? Like, what people have access to when it comes to fertility as well as actual pregnancy?
It definitely makes access with anything makes a difference. Okay. We know that.
True.
Access with anything makes a difference. I will say the people, whether or not they do or don't have a certain level of resources, if they take their pregnancy and their birth serious enough to invest however they need to invest in it. Some people may never access a doula just because of where they live or whatever the case may be, and they might not have anybody who services their area. But if they take it serious enough, as anybody should, then they'll be equipped and they'll be prepared like they need to be, even without the presence of a doula. Funny story, and I'm not going to give the whole thing. I had a doula that I wanted to work with my first baby. She was like, I'm not taking any clients anymore because of the season of life she was in. And I'm like, please, please, please. Do you know what she did? And I'll never forget it. She made sure I had access to every single book, every single resource that I could possibly have. She didn't come with me to labor and delivery or anything else. But me and my husband were so prepared. He knew that thing like the back of his hand. He knew it like his social security number. So even if I was asleep and kind of going through a contraction or whatever the case may have been, he knew that thing. He knew that thing, but she prepared us. I want to say she might have even at this point gifted me some books since I've become a doula. She prepared us. She made sure I had access to every single thing so I could do whatever it was I needed to do. I knew who else I could pull from in the community in terms of resources. And while financial resources wasn't a strain at the time, I had a person that I wanted to work with who simply, for her own personal reasons, could not work with me, and that was okay. But she still wanted me to be prepared. So that's encouragement to anybody say, well, hey, I can't find any doulas, or I haven't found one that I, want to work with or can afford, or whatever the case may be. Do your due diligence. Get whatever you can have access to and go from there. Please, please, please don't what is it called? Don't shoot in the dark. don't shoot in the dark. Go in with some kind of understanding. Whether you birthing at home or in the hospital, get some kind of understanding. You don't have to be in the dark. This is an experience that you can't do over. You can have another baby, but it won't be the same one.
Right.
I love
it. You can't do it over. I have cut my hair. I have colored my hair. My hair is growing back just so I can't find a barber. I can do my hair over and over again. I can't do either of those experiences with those humans in the next room from me. Yeah. I can have another baby, but it won't be another them.
Yeah.
Make whatever investments you need to make, regardless of access. We live in the age of information, and it's good information. So sift it out. We scroll on the phone for the for the gender reveal colors. We scroll on the phone for the maternity picture dress. We scroll on the phone for the event venue. We ask Facebook, Google, and everybody else everything under the sun. Let somebody tell you some good information, something you can really hold on to and take that to the bank.
But do you know that that's us with everything?
Yes,
that's us. When I say us, I mean Black people. With everything, we choose the the stupid stuff over what we really need when it comes to something serious.
It's the same thing. We do this when it's time to plan to go to college. Yep. We do this when it's time for a funeral. We do this every single time. Every single time. The Bible tells us that, and I don't know if I can talk about that on here. Lydia, stop me. Okay.
Come on, girl.
But we the lack of knowledge. Yep. And it's not even just the lack of knowledge. The rest of that text says because they have rejected it.
Yes.
Somebody told you what you needed to know, but you thought something else was important. Somebody tried to point you in the right direction, but you weren't willing to invest your time or your efforts, not even your money all the time.
Right.
There's a whole lot of free resources in the area. It's like, but you rejected it. And now you're on the back end crying about, not just because you got hormonal shifts going on, but because things didn't go how you thought they were going to go because of what you saw on Instagram or TV.
Right.
And Sally Sue and Mary Jane had babies and they didn't have postpartum depression. And then now you done had your baby and you a lunatic and don't know why.
Wait a minute. But see, Sally, Jane, those ladies largely don't look like us, and I'm just basing it on the names.
It's
true.
And
so the level of stress that Black women in particular, like I've been reading so much lately. Again, last week opened my eyes to doulas, and it really caused me to do the research. Like you said, we Google everything else, so Google the information that's going to inform you so that people can't convince you otherwise, right? Or not to say that can't convince you otherwise, but people that you are fact-based, I'll say that you're dealing with real facts and not alternative facts.
So you know
Okay.
what? Most of us, when we get pregnant, it don't matter young or old. You know what we excited about? Posting it on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to let the world know we pregnant. And
This
you
is
ain't
true.
thought about nothing that you needed. Ain't thought, no, because I'm gonna have a baby shower when it get close, and everybody gonna give me this stuff, and they ain't think about nothing else. Just that. The surface level, sorry for saying it, BS opposed to what's actually needed. Same thing like HIV.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing like HIV. I ain't studying HIV because it ain't studying me, and until it does. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now,
And my mother-in-law would say, "Oops, it's too late."
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oops,
Now
it's
you
too late.
worried and you crying and you calling Kim Moon and you calling Freda Jones and all these others and calling Lydia, and you're saying, they done told me I'm HIV positive. Now you ready to commit suicide. Now you ready to do all these things. And yeah. So
And we have to literally walk people back. The work that we do at Selma Air, a part of that is not just providing education, but also working with people and helping people to thrive beyond an HIV diagnosis, right? Not allowing people to walk into it and feel like like HIV is you. Like, no, it's just something that you have, right? Just like diabetes. It's a very, very, very small part of the total package that is you. So walking people back off that ledge is a part of what we do. And I know that that's a part of what you do as a doula as well, when mommies go into panic mode or what have you. And I do want to ask Kimberlin though, based on your journey, I know that your book is designed to help women who may have had a similar experience. So, and we've started talking about postpartum depression, and I just kind of wanted you to chime in to talk about, you were working, as a social worker, like you actually were helping other people change their lives, and then so it wasn't like the insurance was the issue, right? It wasn't like your access was the issue, but like what about your experience in becoming a mom has set you apart, and your ministry, I'll say, that has evolved from that?
So with mine, my experience and kind of how This Is Too Much came about was just, again, being a first time mom during COVID, not having a lot of information. And with me, I did research. I researched. I wrote things down, took things to my doctor's appointment. But even with doing all of that, it's still so many different levels to it that I just didn't understand and didn't even think about until it was too late. And one of those things was, and I kind of just go ahead. You want me to go ahead? Can I share my story?
Sure.
Okay. So just from the beginning, my pregnancy was perfect. Didn't have any issues, no complications. Perfect, no problems. So my son was due on a Saturday in May. The whole day I went, I was fine, no issues. But I can say the week coming up into me supposed to have my baby that Saturday, they were kind of very nonchalant about like checking me. Well, you're not having any contractions, so you're fine. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. So I go on, Saturday comes, no issues throughout the entire day. I'm fine. So it was around 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, okay, this may be what contractions feel like. So my husband's like, probably so. So my medical insurance, they make you call in and report to them and say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing because of COVID. So they told us to time my contractions. So that's what I did. So at this time, they're about 5 minutes apart. So my husband, he's like, we need to go to the hospital. So then I'm still trying to follow protocol because they told us to call back in an hour. And so he's like, we need to go. So we call them back and we tell them, and they're like, okay, go ahead and head to the hospital. So when we get to the hospital, I'm in so much pain. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm feeling like wow. So they take me into the room, they check me, and at this point, I'm already 7 centimeters dilated. So they're like, what? Like, have you had a child before? I'm like, no, I've never had a child. So they were like, it was almost like they had saw a ghost, because they were saying that they had never really experienced someone being 7 centimeters dilated, and this is their first child, and not having any complications up until, the pain. So I'm like, okay. So they calm me down. They rush me in to do an epidural at this point. So I'm like, yeah, I just want the pain to stop. So once that happened, I got the epidural. I started to calm down, and then that's when they kept coming back and checking me, and then they noticed that my son had a bowel movement. So at that point, like, I'm on a whole different level, because I'm at this point very scared, because I had a family member that had experienced that, and their child ended up dying from it. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so at this time, my mind is racing, and my heart rate is just picking up. And so they're like, we need you to calm down. And I couldn't, because I'm so nervous at this point. So they have me hooked up, and at this point, it's like 3:00 in the morning. So they're still monitoring me, and they gave me something to where it was basically watching him and trying to get the fluid out from him having a bowel movement. So still in a lot of pain. They're monitoring him. They're telling me, like, he's not coming down anymore. We may have to end up doing an emergency C-section. So I'm like, oh, so now I'm on a whole different level, because I'm going in here thinking that I'm going to have just a regular birth, vaginal birth, and then they're saying C-section. So I'm very scared. So my heart rate is continuing to be elevated. And they continue to monitor me. So at this point, it's almost like in the morning time, I say around 8, 9. So they're monitoring his heartbeat, watching it, and it kind of starts to like have pauses in between it. So of course you're hearing this, and I'm already nervous because of everything that has happened up until this point. And then I start to hear like his heartbeat drop, and then it's a long time to where you don't hear it at all. And so at this point, they came in, they're checking for it, and you hear it on the monitor, and then you don't hear his heartbeat anymore. So I'm like, oh my God. So they are trying to stay calm, but then you see that they're at this point frantic as well. Mm-hmm. And you see them get on the phone, and they're like calling these codes. And I was telling everybody, it could have been filmed for like a movie. And so, all I hear is like them calling codes. And then the next thing it was 2 nurses. And then next thing I see is 6 nurses in there. And they're like moving everything around and unhooking me from the monitor. And they like literally like just lift up the latches from the bed, and they just like shoot down the hallway. So my husband is in there with me, but he cannot go. So I'm like super nervous. I'm like, oh my God, his heart has stopped. That's what I'm thinking in my head. So they rush me down the hallway, and then they go in and get me prepped to have my C-section. And then I see my husband come in. So then we're still just so like nervous at this point, because it has went from like 0 to 1,000 in minutes. So end up having the C-section, and it was okay. I got through that part. I get back to the room, and your body is in such shock. Anybody's ever experienced it, like you do a lot of shaking afterwards, like uncontrollably shaking, like you can't stop your body from shaking, literally. Mm-hmm. So I come down from that, and they put you on pain medication, and I'm on that. So I get through the day, and so I'm starting to calm down. I'm like, okay, like we made it. He's alive. I'm alive. And then the next day happens, and so the next day I had an older nurse, and a lot of times you do hear people say this about medication management, and how it is with Black women. And so for some reason, I'm telling them, like, hey, I'm starting to feel pain. And this is before like she's getting ready to get like, the shift change. And so she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to give you some medicine. And I never hear back from her. And then she comes in out the room like twice. And so then I'm like, ma'am, like I'm really hurting at this point. And she still had not ordered my medication. And to the point to where like 3 hours had went by, and I'm like crying, because, anyone that has ever had a C-section, I've never been hit by a car, but I would probably say that that's what it felt like at that time because like my body was just in so much pain. So I'm like, this time I'm like crying. I'm like, like I'm asking you for the medicine, like, who is in charge of you? And I start asking questions and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So then she finally goes back and get it. And I hear people all the time now that I'm having a conversation, they talk about a lot of times Black women are treated different because they feel that we can endure more pain. And then sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes they kind of treat us like we're drug addicts. So when you're asking for more pain, they don't really believe that you are in pain. So that was something that I did experience firsthand. And I just could not believe it because, when you go in, you do feel like, oh, I'm a professional. I'm not a drug addict. I have insurance. I have a husband, so you just thinking that all of these.
You're checking all the boxes.
Yes, she's checking all the boxes.
And you still get treated very badly. And I just could
because
not
that skin
it.
color.
Yes, I could not believe it. And so, my husband, he's very like more laid back. So I'm always the one that has the voice. So he's like, I'm like, Cortez, you have to tell them this. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, get my mama on the phone. And so my mama, she's like coaching me and telling me like, hey, you need to do this. Something even as simple as like stool softeners. I didn't know. And they had not given me one the entire time. And she's like, what? And she's telling me like all these different things. But it's just something that you don't know. So even I got past that, I'm like, okay, I'm almost out of here. So I get home and I'm feeling like just very funny. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I just feel so weird. And so my leg had started to hurt. And that was something that they told us to watch out for, even me, because a lot of times you could get blood clots with having a C-section. So, my husband like, it's probably in your mind. And I'm like, I don't know, I feel funny. So I get in the shower, and at this point, this is when I noticed that I start having anxiety. And I get in the shower and I can feel my heart literally beating. So I'm like, okay. I get out and I say, I'm about to go back to the hospital. He's like, just calm down. Like, no, I'm about to leave you here. And so we get in the car and go to the hospital, and they do the test. I don't have any blood clots, but they like, ma'am, your blood is extremely low. So I'm like, what? And so here I am. It's like, at this point, it's probably like 3:00 in the morning. And so he comes back in, and again, my husband couldn't even come with me. He has our son in the car, so they're literally waiting in the car. And they're like, you have, your blood is extremely low. We're about to call back over to the hospital that you were at and like, get them your numbers. So my blood level was 2 points away from being fatal. So they released me without checking my blood. So here I am. I'm like such a mess at this point. I am just crying like a baby. I'm like hysterical because he comes back in and he's like, you're going to have a blood transfusion. And so this just took me over the top because again, we got our son, my husband's not able to come with me. They have all the COVID restrictions. My family is in Alabama. We're in Georgia. So it was just so much on me. So I'm like, a blood transfusion. I'm like, no, I just want to get out at this point. So I was so anxious. Like I had never run an ambulance. So I didn't want to go by ambulance. I'm like, I'll just sign a medical waiver for you guys to release me because I'm just at this point just so over it and just wanted my husband to take me. And then it was a Black nurse. Now I think I was telling my cousin the other day because she's a nurse now. Like God just put so many nurses in my path that were Black, and she was like, baby, you got to calm down. She was like, God did not bring you this far to leave you. So I calmed down. I let them transport me to the hospital. When I got in the room, I was crying really then because they still said that my husband couldn't come. Another Black nurse came, and she was actually a manager, and she was like, don't worry, I'm going to get your husband in here with you. And she got him, and she even allowed him to bring my son, just saying that he could not leave my son unattended with me. So it was just so many different people that helped along the way. So even though it was a lot of bad people that were in place, they really gave a bad experience, it was still the people that I met, the Black nurses that came in and just made sure that I was okay. So after that happened, I got the blood transfusion and I went home the next day. So everything after that, as far as like with my medical conditions, it was fine. But that's really when the anxiety kicked in. So anytime I start hurting, my toe could start hurting. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I need to go to the hospital, like, anything could hurt. And I was like, my heart was racing like at 160, just sitting still. I was a mess. And so trying to get past that, and then on top of that, we didn't have any family that was in Georgia. So like you said, being a new mom, and on top of that, I worked in social services, so I saw a lot of child deaths from just so many different things. So all of that stuff now playing in my mind. So at nighttime, I'm literally watching over my son, just making sure he's breathing, literally watching him. So not sleeping, getting up and just not eating. It was so bad. And so I was able to get through that. And then you're trying to pace yourself to get back to the point to where you can go back to work, because now you're on FMLA, but you have such limited time to pull it all back together. Yep. So I think it was, to me, one of the hardest experiences ever, because there's so many moving pieces that moving at so many different times. You're making sure that you're okay. Now you have a child that you're responsible for. And my husband is an entrepreneur, so he doesn't have sick leave. So we're worried about making sure he gets back on the road because he is the breadwinner. So there's so many pieces that you have. And when you have those incidents happening, it's like, okay, well, what can we do? So it's like you're trying to literally like put this piece together, and you really don't know. And then even with me and my family, we don't have a lot of younger children. So with my son, for like my nephew, he's turning 18 in May. So that's how big of a gap it is. So the things that were normal back then, it's so different now. So you just really having to like search and just talk and have these conversations. And, a lot of times with the anxiety, people don't understand it. So when you have an anxiety, like, oh, just pray this off of you. And be like, look, I'm just like, I'm going through it right now.
Oh, okay.
Like keep myself together and then work, and I end up going back to work, and again in social services, and coupled with the great resignation to where everybody's quitting, the workload was unmanageable. It was just so much. Like literally, to me, to this point, I turned 30 in June, has been the hardest thing ever that I've had to deal with. And just processing it all and putting the pieces together. And even still now, just having so many things that you're trying to balance with, having a child and trying to get your groove back, and, just trying to keep yourself up and just find time for every single thing and still, be okay. And it's okay not to be okay. And that's what I'm learning, and to actually create those boundaries and, whatever it is with your experience, to allow your experience to teach someone else. So that's what I'm doing now. And it's just been really good. And I'm glad that I'm having the opportunity to share my experience, because so many moms, when I talk to them after that, and not even just with birth and just COVID in general, had so many people that had anxiety, that had depression, that was having suicidal ideations, and it's not being talked about, because it's kind of like one of those things, especially in the Black community. Like I said earlier, you pray off of you, or, you'll be okay. There's nothing really wrong with you. That's in your head. That's in your mind. So just giving this opportunity has just given me the chance to embrace it and see that it's not so far-fetched. And also it was a great experience because I did work with so many different people in the social services, and me being able to pour into them and now needing my cup refilled. And it was just giving me a whole different view, because a lot of times when you meet parents or you meet moms that have gotten on drugs, you're like, wow, like how did this happen? And it's not so far-fetched when you go through a traumatic experience and you understand that, this has happened, or, anything like it. Now I can understand and I empathize with them on a whole different level, because I see that it's not a lot that can really put you in those situations to have you become, a drug addict or have a drinking problem if you choose to cope with it in a negative way. So that is my experience.
So I really, first of all, want to say I really, I knew parts of your story, but to hear it in such detail this evening, I really hate that was your experience. because even though I think a lot of folks, I've heard mommy say, I don't even remember everything. And I don't remember everything, but I can only imagine how anxious you were and wanting to remember stuff that you really can't because of the anxiety that was happening. I wanted to ask about the impact that doulas could have, or a birthing doula in particular could have in situations like what Kimberlin is describing. Because Black women, and this is factual information, y'all. We are not making any of the stuff that we're talking about up. Black women are discriminated against when it comes to addressing pain and managing pain, regardless of whether it's during birth or an injury has occurred or some sort of surgery has occurred. Black women are 4 times more likely to experience maternal death than our white counterparts. Y'all, hear that again. We are, as Black women, 4 times more likely to die trying to have a baby. In what is supposed to be a space that is conducive for that. In the hospital, we're not talking about midwife births, home birth, you know what I'm saying? Or like where midwives deliver babies at home. We're talking about in the hospital, because midwives can deliver babies in the hospital. We are 4 times more likely to die than our white counterparts. And that's important for us to realize. How can doulas impact that? Because see, doulas, again, doing that research, doulas are not old. They're not new. They're actually old. And the idea of having someone who is a support system who is not necessarily related to you is a tradition that comes from Africa. So how could doulas actually have made a difference in a situation like Kimberlin's? I know you probably have like several points where you were like, "Oh, I could have done that. I could have done that."
Not even that. I just have a million things going through my head, Kimberlin. That is so much. And the crazy part is, for as unique as your experience was to you, so many of those things I have seen and or heard, not from people that I've worked with as a doula, but just from me being in labor and delivery and being on the postpartum unit and seeing moms being readmitted back to the hospital, like she said, because my blood is too low. I see it all the time. If you got a decent doctor, they'll catch it and say, hey, I got a standing order for so many units of blood long before that mother ever discharges, so she can still stay there with her baby and not be interrupted and disrupted when it comes to her care and transition. And if you got a decent nurse with some decent eyes, they can kind of tell, hey, something ain't quite right. Something ain't quite right. Let me get Dr. Whoever on the line. Hey, I'm noticing this, that, the third with whatever patient. Our bodies are going to do what they do. I'm hearing you talk about, you said, well, I came in at 7 centimeters as a first time. In my mind, I'm like, dang, sis a beast. It's like, I want to make the pain stop. And so what happens is we want to make the pain stop, but usually when we hear about, okay, I want the pain to stop, I don't want to feel anything, I'm not against that. It's more than one way to do that, though. Like epidurals aren't the only available option. You have Stadol, you have Demerol, you have your nitrous oxide. You can hold that up. Those contractions come, take a deep breath. And the reason I like people to know their options is because any intervention when it comes to any type of augmenting of your labor, any type of pain relief, any type of induction methods, they all come with some form of risk. We know that. But sometimes it's like, just fine. The baby's heart rate was fine. Okay, meconium stain. That doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be. And you had in your mind going like, this happened with my, would you say your cousin's baby or somebody else's baby that you knew? So in her mind, that is a big deal. And at the same time, it's like, okay, the baby's not coming down. In my mind, I'm like, I wonder how long it took for them to say the baby's not coming down and her blood pressure is elevated. But also, did you say that your baby's heart rate was starting to tank a little bit? So that's what you call, if you ever hear the word decel and you are in the hospital, somebody's heart rate is going down. If you ever hear decel, it just means deceleration. If you hear them say decel, somebody's heart rate is going down. They ain't gonna talk to us in straight terms in most cases. They're gonna talk in medical terms, and they're gonna talk fast, and everything is short and quick for obvious reasons. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes with epidurals being introduced, it can cause both baby and mom's heart rates to tank. And sometimes it can cause them to speed up. And so in those cases where it's like, hey, we're moving you around and try to get you positioned, we noticing this on the monitor. Sometimes that is a call for, hey, we just might have to do a C-section, and now we are scrambling and we're flying back. But I always wonder what options were offered before that. Because when we talk about pain management and having babies, the first thing your auntie, your neighbor, best friend will say, girl, you better get there in time for that epidural. And we talk about what
we think that's a rite of passage. To have a baby, you got to have that epidural. No.
And that's fine. Yeah. That is perfectly fine. I'm not anti-epidural. I just like when people know, hey, you got this option, but you have other options too. Just because we thank God for modern medicine. Just because you are having a baby does not mean that you have to. A lot of times the epidural will help you rest, because sometimes you've been laboring a long time. It's like, you're laboring and you're tired. It can help you rest. We just have to navigate. What I teach my clients is always ask, what's the benefit? Use your brain. What's the benefit? What's the risk? How is this administered? Right. Trust your intuition. No, I need more time. Or, okay, what's next? Use your brain. Benefit, risk. How is this administered? Follow your intuition, whatever that may be. And end is, I need more time. No, I don't want to do anything. Or what's next? So asking those questions will help your medical team, help your providers to kind of slow down and address them with you in a clear way. If something's not emergent, because you'll know if it's emergent, it can slow them down, and it can help you slow down instead of just kind of saying, yes, because it's the doctor. Yes, because it's the nurse. Yes, because I'm tired. Use your brain. Always use your brain.
And do you know how many Black people don't know that they have the right to ask questions and make decisions for them? The doctor don't make the decision for you, you do. But most Black people don't know that. He or she works for you.
For you.
For you. Or she works for you. You paid them. That's how a working relationship works. I pay you to do a service. Mm-hmm. So you don't tell me what to do. I tell you, you tell me my options, and I tell you what I want you to do. Or I research my options, and then I tell you what I want you to do. And that's how it should be, but most Black people don't know that. But I wanted to ask a question. Have you all had like an issue with doctors not like appreciating or even wanting their patients to have a doula, like when they know that you do? I just want to know, like, because it sounds like that would be conflict, because you are telling them what, their options. And a lot of doctors don't want their patients to have options.
Yeah, because they want to make it home for dinner.
Yeah.
And I want to say the other A with that, I know we said, how is it administered, but what's the alternative is the other A. So we're talking about options with that when it comes to pain management or anything. But I've only had one doctor have an outright issue.
Oh, really?
Not have a complete and total outright hissy fit, stomping mad right here in Montgomery, Alabama.
Instead of appreciating the help, because that takes some of the work off you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
He was completely and totally disrespectful, not only to me, but to my client, to her support person. I will never forget that experience. And I still have to send my letter to the Alabama Board of Medicine, because he was completely and totally out of pocket and uncalled for. To the point where he was put out of the birth space. My client fired him, and she had 8 centimeters, and she fired him, as she should have. Now, mind you, I'm talking with y'all, but when the doctors and the nurses come in to speak to the patients, I'm not going to speak over my people, because this is your experience. And through through all the rapport, everything, all the education that we've had for the however many months, this is your experience and this is your voice. We gonna talk after they gone.
Yeah.
Or I might say, hey, such and such, remember you had questions about this, that, the third.
You're there as a support system. So
Right. Or I say, hey, remember that she didn't want this, that, or whatever. When I see certain things happening, because you kind of read the room. Like if you say you don't want any episiotomy and this baby getting ready to come out and y'all done pulled out the scissors, I'm like, hey, remember what she said about episiotomy? And usually if I say something loud enough, everybody in the room catches it and the doctor will put the scissors down. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they say, oh, hey, she didn't want to be cut. But the scissors are already down, because I'm like, hey, remember what she said? And I'm saying it loud enough so everybody can hear and kind of go from there. I've only had one doctor who completely, totally, utterly did not value my presence. Basically told me I didn't know anything. He said, if your friend here, who's making the decisions here, if your friend here knew anything, she know you need a C-section by now. Your baby's stuck. It's not my fault that your pelvis is too small and your hips ain't wide enough.
whoa.
What?
This is what you're saying to somebody
See,
having a baby.
That you want to pay you.
I'm
Right.
just like, she was the most composed person I've ever seen. She was fully, fully certain of herself. She was completely and totally sure of herself. I didn't have to keep calling out, hey, remember.
That
Right.
means you did your job.
she was very sure of herself. And I just reminded her, I said, you don't, when he left the room the first time after he was on his foolishness, she looked at me, she said, I don't want him back in here. I said, he doesn't have to come back in here. You can fire him and get another doctor.
Yep.
I said, okay. And she came and I said, let your nurse know, and they'll let the charge nurse know, or ask for the charge nurse when the nurses come back in. She said, okay. She did just that. He was still inappropriate, and all the nurses saw it. The nurses put him out, said, you need to leave.
Wow.
He was like, I'm sure you've had a bad day. Like he was having complete and total hissy fit.
Wow.
Complete and total
see,
hissy fit.
to blame it though on a bad day is not okay. Right? Because when you think about the trauma that Black people have endured in America, every day could be a bad day, first of all.
Yeah.
But then but the trauma that we've endured with medicine in particular is something that has to play in the minds of those who are knowledgeable of history. The fact that Black women who were enslaved Africans had babies and were expected to keep it pushing, right? Like you still have a quota to meet, even though you just had this baby in a field.
Baby and go out here and pick this cotton when you finish.
Right. And the fact that the doctors who were delivering our children were not in fact human doctors at all, but that our ancestors were treated by veterinarians. Yes. Right? Like that is because
they made Miss Seeley come deliver you and deliver your baby, and then both of y'all got to get on back out there and start picking more cotton.
Right. Yeah. And so the disrespect, though, it feels very present, right? Not 1865, not 1822, but very 2022. When you say, oh, well, y'all have had a bad day. Your friend here should have told you needed a C. Like, come on now. What are you doing?
She went on and she fired him, and she went on to have a vaginal birth with a very supportive doctor.
Amen.
And all was well. She made it on the 10 centimeters just a short few hours later. Yeah. And all was well. And her hips weren't too small, and her pelvis wasn't too small, and her baby descended just fine.
He wanted to run up that insurance bill and her copay so he could get more money. Yes. I mean, that's really what it's about. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
That's what it's about. And the unfortunate part is that's like that in the health industry, and it don't matter what it is, babies, whatever, HIV, same thing. It is crazy that I say this all the time. Well, people say this, and I say something else. People say knowledge is power. No, applied knowledge is power. You can have all you want up here, but if you don't use it,
that's the one.
You said nothing. You've done nothing. You got to use it. And if you're not big, bad, and bold enough to speak up for yourself and to advocate for yourself and to know what you're talking about and what they're talking about, then you've done nothing but sat there and allowed, in most cases, some white man or white woman to make decisions for you and take your money.
No. And I want to encourage folks, though, in saying that applied knowledge, like now that we know about doulas or that we're willing to learn about doulas, like really explore that, explore the opportunities that are available to you if you are considering having a baby, right? If you're in a moment and you are trying to figure out where you are in your fertility process, there are fertility doulas, right? Yes. If you are already pregnant and you recognize, like, wait, I get some of this. Like, I understand. Like, I've had a doctor tell me about my fibroids and I may not be able to have a safe delivery, right? Consider a doula. When we learn better, we should do better. And and that person then becomes an advocate. Now, we don't have doulas for everything, but I know that Selma Air, we're advocates for your sexual wellness, right? So if you want to know your status, your HIV status, if you want to know more about HIV, if you're a parent who has a young person in your life who needs to know the facts about HIV and you yourself are not equipped to give the answers, call us and we will give those. So identifying the resources. So even if you can't find the strength, right, that you can connect to somebody who can then be that voice, be that advocate, that you feel more comfortable saying, like, listen, I don't want this. I do want this. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? Okay, now tell them what I don't want. Right.
Right.
Because sometimes those white coats and all those, and the scrubs can be intimidating.
It can be intimidating.
For sure. I say this though, when it, like, I say this every time I go speak. The one thing, like, I wasn't educated about HIV when I was diagnosed in 2001. And I tell people every time I go speak, the one thing that you have that I didn't have is a Kim Moon. I didn't have nobody. I didn't know nobody. I knew Magic Johnson had. Well, I didn't know Magic wasn't gay. I thought it was a gay man's disease. Yeah. I didn't know he wasn't gay just because he was married. And so therefore, you got a Kim Moon who makes herself accessible. If I'm not helping you, then I'm just walking around here telling my story, giving you some juicy gossip. And that ain't what I'm here for. I am here to help, to advocate, to educate, to inform, whatever else you need me to be, as you do the same thing, to do all of those things that make a difference. We, hence why Positively Beautiful came about, have got to learn to love ourselves enough to want better for ourselves. Don't settle for less than the best. I do audio books sometimes, but sometimes I read them, and this is really bad what I'm about to say. But if y'all ever want a good book to listen to, and it's about hope and all that, it's a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes.
Best book.
Yes.
I'm telling you. And the reason why I didn't want to read it is because, sometimes you just need something poured into your spirit or into your mindset or your thought process that can make you think different. Now, if you can get past all the cussing, because he's going to cuss a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't care. I cuss. I'm a Christian, but I cuss. Okay? I ask God to forgive me and I keep moving. But at the end of the day, if you can get past, listen to that book. Listen, I don't say read it, because you probably be reading it. I probably be like, honey, he cussing too much. I don't even know what he's saying. It's just too much cussing in there. But listening to it, it's just different.
Yeah.
I cut that book on and I be listening. And so I had my surgery. So I'm laying in the bed listening to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And this thing is amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But and there's a lot to that, there could be there probably already is a more Christian or like center
yeah
version of that, of what he's saying. But I have that book. He actually has another book as well that has a lot of expletives in it.
Oh yeah, he's doing his thing now. You got if you one of them that's so super saved, that you can't take it, then don't do it. But I'm telling you, you will get something out of it, and what you get out of it ain't what you think. It ain't gonna be
Right.
getting out of it that you don't give a fuck about nothing.
Right.
That ain't what you getting out of it. You are actually learning how to think and process and have hope and to just want for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in saying that and wanting better for ourselves, we also, as Black women, have to want better for our sisters, those to our left and our right, who may not have the information that we have, or who may have it and have a different understanding. And, for us to be able to support people no matter where they are in their journey is important, right? I want to just ask Kimberlin to talk about her book really quickly, because it is going to be available for purchase. You can already pre-order, if I'm not mistaken, on Amazon, right?
You can go ahead. So I do have a link to where I'll share it in the comments to where you can go ahead and purchase it. I'm going live as far as with my promoting. I started today, so I'll officially put it up on all of my social media sites on next Tuesday. So I have the first one just came about with doing everything out during the time that I was going through everything. Just the people in my circle around me just inspire me and just continuing to pour into me. So I went back, probably a couple months ago, and I just wrote everything down. So it was just inspirational quotes that stuck with me, and I turned it into a coloring book. The second one is a self-care coloring book, because a lot of times, especially during COVID, being a new mom, you forget to just pamper yourself. So I have a coloring book that just have, inspirational sayings and quotes for self-care. Just breathe, take a walk, take a nap. So those are in that coloring book. And then my third one is an anxiety journal. So everything I experienced is in that journal, and it's helping people be able to track it. Because when you are a new mom, you're going to the doctor, they're going to ask you these series of questions of different things that you're experiencing. So I captured all of that and put it into a journal, so you can write down how you're sleeping, your water intake, did your heart race today? What did you use to cope with it? Was it the coloring book, or did you take a walk? Did you listen to music? You're able to capture all of that. So I did put those three things out for people that's experiencing anxiety, depression, different things along that nature. And it will be available. I'll put it on in the comments, and they can go ahead and purchase it. And on April the 5th, I'm going to go live with it on all my platforms.
So congratulations to you for being a published author. We are super excited and are willing to support. Listen, buy the book. Go on Amazon, click the link that she's putting in the comments. Make sure that you purchase the books, because there are 3 of them. If you know a mommy, right, or soon to be mommy, then get the journal, right? Get the coloring book and give it as a gift. What a great baby shower gift.
I know, right?
It ain't all got to be about the baby, honey, because mama needs some stuff too. Look.
That's something that I learned too. If I could go back, I would put things on my baby shower list for me.
Yeah.
Preach. Listen, I started to buy, when I buy baby shower gifts, I always buy diapers. I don't buy none of them clothes because they grow too fast.
Yes.
I always buy diapers and wipes. But I started buying stuff for moms too. I'm like, this is gonna be the last time anybody even halfway think about moms. So I try to get little comfy little robes, or like some lounge wear, something like that, something to help you kind of adjust to your new body, without feeling any, kind of pressure. Like,
that's a whole nother topic that we don't discuss. Having them babies and that body go to changing, and we depressed because all while we laying on the bed because we tired. We looking at Instagram, and all these women over here is got these fine bodies, and we mad because we ain't there no more. And then we thinking this your fault, little Tommy. This is your fault. Then you want to cuss your husband out because it's his fault for getting you pregnant. Yeah,
Lord.
all that. Yeah, get my
Y'all, we are having a ball. I'm glad that we have been able to share so much information with the audience, considering everything that we've talked about. We acknowledge that Black women in particular have a harder time when it comes to fertility, when it comes to pregnancy, and when it comes to giving birth. So hospitals, just the fact that hospitals serving Black women have a higher maternal complication rate than other hospitals. Not to say that a hospital has a Black only sign, but just depending on your neighborhood, right? And your proximity to care, the stats literally say that 12 out of 15 births are complicated when it comes to Black women giving birth. So how can we, y'all? Because as one of our viewers is saying, the energy is everything. How do we give energy and reinforce the positivity that you were talking about, Kim? How do we begin to advocate for and seek to help to reduce the number of maternal complications that our sisters are experiencing? What can we do?
I think that what we're doing right now, continue to have open dialogue and honest conversations, because a lot of platforms you're not able to speak so freely about the different complications, or it's kind of filter the knowledge, and having people that are educated to come forth and share their knowledge. So I think it just comes with just educating and having an open platform to where we can talk and discuss it, because you don't have that. You don't have a lot of podcasts that are just speaking about doulas, having doulas come on and educate. So I think that this platform within itself is the start of it.
Awesome.
I agree. Continue to have open dialogue, and like Kim mentioned, this is the knowledge, but let's apply it. Yeah. So let's apply what we learned today. Let's make sure we get something for ourselves. Like Kimberlin said, get something for yourself. Self-care is top tier. We can't take care of them babies if we can't take care of ourselves. When the mothers are well, we don't have to worry about anybody else. We know that for certain. I'm gonna tell, because I know it ain't no but Black folks on here. Get a blood pressure cuff. If you are ever in a hospital setting, whether it is for birth or otherwise, make sure you and whoever your person, your loved one is in there, ask for the phone number for the patient advocate. Before anything goes left, every hospital has a patient advocate. Ask for the phone number. Ask for the information of the charge nurse. Ask for that out the gate. Don't wait until something going left. Ask for it out the gate. And that information should righteously be posted on the little board. Whoever the person is in charge. Ask for the information of the charge nurse and even the nurse manager. That's any hospital facility you go to in this country. You have charge nurse, nurse manager, patient advocate. And if you plan to give birth, hire a doula. And get a blood pressure cuff, y'all, because preeclampsia and everything else is whooping our tails. Pregnancy-induced hypertension. We're talking about stress. I know you mentioned, just trying to put all the pieces together. It ain't just kicking our tails in pregnancy, y'all. The hypertension is getting crazy even after. So even if you just had a baby, still for 2 months after you had that baby, check your blood pressure when you wake up, check it when you go to sleep, so you have some kind of point of reference and you know when something is off.
And y'all, there's an app for that. There are blood pressure apps where you can actually, as you take your blood pressure, you just dial it in, and that way when you go to the doctor, you actually have a record. So we use our phones for everything else. We shop on them. We call people. We apply, we get on social media. So check your blood pressure and document your blood pressure.
Check your blood pressure, Black women. Check your blood pressure.
Yes.
Please.
And I just want to add one last thing before we go. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Like Lydia and somebody else said, you don't know what you don't know. And when you don't know, you ask somebody. And if that somebody can't help you, then that's when we're going to go to Dr. Google and and hopefully what we Googling is correct. But I'm just saying, like, as somebody, I think one of the biggest things with us as Black people, but especially Black women,
Mhm.
we have got to learn to, yes, love ourselves, but love each other and
Yeah.
support each other
Yeah.
and be there for each other and help one another. And I am not talking about finances. I am talking about whatever. If you call, a lady from New York called me yesterday and said, Kim, God put you in my spirit to call you and ask you a question. I said, what? She said, my son living in Atlanta. He got a baby by a girl. He's been the sole provider. She don't have a job, and
Mm.
she just took a job in Mexico, and he don't want the baby to go. Do you know any attorneys? Let me make a few phone calls. Judge Kirk texts me back today. Is it what a defect? It ain't defects in Georgia. I forgot what it's called. Involved. I said no. She sent me a number. Bam. Simple.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was just a question, but nevertheless, it was help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just help. So we, as Black women, have got to learn to do that. I am right now. I just joined. Y'all, I keep talking about HIV because that's what I do. One, and then that's what Lydia's job do. So two, we got to talk about HIV because that's what this is. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just joined a group. We are starting an epic movement, and we're trying to make a difference in the women, Black women with HIV. Because if you read the national strategy of HIV and AIDS and anything else, guess what they talking about mostly? Everybody but us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So just like with anything else, whether it's pregnancies, attorneys, whatever it is, we gotta learn to love and support each other and be there for each other. And just help out. If you got a solution to my problem, don't hold it. Help me out. It's that simple.
I want to encourage women who are online right now that if you are not familiar with Selma Air, or if you do not, if you have not already enrolled in the She's Ready program, because everything that these ladies have just been referring to is what She's Ready is designed to do. Yes, Selma Air was founded, and it is our mission to reduce the number of new HIV transmissions as well as to provide high quality care for people living and thriving beyond an HIV positive diagnosis across Alabama, particularly West Central Alabama. But a part of what we're doing, especially for Black women right now, is making sure that we build this network of women who are able to access some of the very things that we're talking about, so that we're building this network of women who can catch each other, so that we're not continuously falling through the cracks of medical abuse, falling through the cracks of not knowing what high blood pressure feels like in our bodies, right? Black women lead in numbers when it comes to heart disease. Okay. Black women lead when it comes to infertility. We lead when it comes to fibroids. We lead when it comes to HIV diagnoses. Literally, Black women behind Black men who have sex with men, white men who have sex with men, and Hispanic men who have sex with men. Black women are the fourth fastest growing population of people thriving beyond HIV. We've got to work together in order to stop this. So if you or someone you know is a Black woman between the ages of 25 and 50, y'all log on to Selma Air's website. There's a page there called She's Ready. On that website, you can learn more about the program, get enrolled. Listen, if you have a group of homegirls you want to hang out with and have these kind of critical conversations, let's grow the network together. Invite all your girls, and we'll shape
Right.
the schedule around your schedule, right? So that we're engaging in this consistency, so that when we have questions about, like, girl, listen, I'm feeling, pain in my chest, I don't know what's going on, we have somebody to turn to. There is nothing like
Somebody,
knowing that
somebody
you
in
have,
there probably been through what you've been through and can tell
right,
you that's probably this. Let's get you here. Let's do that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to encourage everyone who is listening, who is watching, who may share this video. Listen, yes, we're going to buy the books. We are going to buy This Is Too Much. We are going to buy all 3 of them. Yes, we're going to click the link and we're going to learn more about doulas. And if we're about to be a mommy, then we're going to get in touch with Miss Smith. Listen here. Come on, village. Look.
Yes, listen, can I say this? Right.
Yeah.
You know, Kim, you said help another Black woman, help another sister. If you got the
Yep.
solution, don't hold on to it. That
Yeah.
link isn't even about me promoting myself or promoting my business. It's a link full of resources, links to a
Yes.
million resources. And if you don't know what a resource is, it's for the free 99. Okay. It's a million things in there. Childbirth education, y'all, is free. Partnership out of Dallas makes that free for
Mhm.
everybody. We're without excuse. It's virtual. You won't hear, so I know you can log on there. Get the information. Set a reminder in your phone. If you are in the Montgomery area and you're looking for a doula, we getting the bulk of the stuff out of the way for free if you
Yep.
click on one of those links every month. Got a series going at one of the pregnancy centers. Get the information. Click on that link. It's for the free. We creating access and eliminating excuses, y'all. If it ain't for you, tell somebody else.
Yes.
Okay? You need help with breastfeeding. We got access for the free. And it don't matter where you are. Click on one of those hyperlinks. It's gonna get you there. We're gonna get you squared away. We rooting for everybody and cheering for everybody Black.
Yes.
I am too.
I am.
I
Get
am
what
too.
you need. Tap in with Selma Air. All these things, all these resources are in place for a reason. Ain't nobody that's out here putting money here, there, and everywhere because they can't go somewhere else. There's a need.
Yes.
We gotta stop operating in silos. Come from out of the shadows. Get what we need. There's nothing on here that every single person doesn't need. If you have sex, you need unprotected sex. You need an HIV test.
Yes.
I'm about to do for another one.
Yes.
And I'm married, and that ain't even no funny business.
Right.
But I'm
That's just
educated
for real.
enough and I'm comfortable enough to say this is part of regular wellness. This is part of
Yes.
regular checkups. This is part of regular health care.
Yes.
Right.
And I can't wait to order one of her books. I'm probably just ordering for my clients and put them in my little postpartum packages.
I love it.
I'm excited. I'm excited about those. Y'all, please tap in. I have had so much fun tonight.
Yes.
I have to.
So now, as we begin to wrap up, because listen, when we started, it was daylight. Now it's dark.
I know, girl. I had to put my light on the back of my phone so y'all could see me. Look, I'm dark without it. And I ain't even dog. Okay.
Yeah, listen, she's so crazy. Y'all, listen. I love each and every one of you all. I appreciate you for everything you bring to the table for yourself and for your families and for our community. I want to just quickly ask and invite each of you to share. If you could say anything to any viewer right now, any Black woman in particular, and tell her to Queen Bee anything, share with us, Queen Bee, what?
Queen, be real about your pain. Don't minimize it and don't mask it.
I love it.
Mm. Mm.
I would say Queen Bee, self-aware. Be self-aware.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So me, I'm just gonna say, Queen, be great, because we all can be together.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess I would have to say in this moment, Queen, be expectant of love.
She'll know.
Be expectant of love. Yeah. So this has been an amazing conversation. Again, I just want to say that I do truly love each and every one of you all. I've hugged Only one, because Kim and I actually have never met in person. Listen.
Yeah.
Right. We've been
You
doing this
hug
a
me.
long
Adila
time.
got her hugs.
Yes. Listen, that's why I was like, Adila, you're the only one I've hugged. And Kimberlin, girl, I wish I could just hug you through the screen.
Kimberlin is
I swear.
in Georgia, so we gotta meet. Well, I'm a low key can't meet up, but we need to meet up. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So y'all, I want to encourage each and every one of you to keep being great, because that's who you are. And to the audience, yes, Chanel said, "Queen, be a queen."
Show you
Yes,
Yeah, show you right.
absolutely. So we
Show
want to
you right.
thank each and every one of you all for joining us as our guests. Kim, thank you for holding it in the road. Oh my goodness, through the pain. Yes, we made it. And thank all of you all who have tuned in and enjoyed another episode of Queen Bee, y'all. Until next month, we
And
love
don't
you.
forget to share.
Yes, please share, tag and share. Yes.